sincerity, we're excited to be back, and I'm sure you guys are excited to be doing this again too. Oh, here it comes. So, fire away.
All right. In terms of working with the tight ends, how do you think that perspective informs the way that you map out the rest of the offense?
Well, you have to be, that's a great question. You have to be careful, and I think one of the challenges sometimes, and I've been fortunate in my career to be able to coordinate and coach every position at some point in the, whatever it's been, 17 or 18 years. And so there's some inherent strengths and some inherent limitations by the position that you coach while you coordinate. It's very natural that you would give that position the most attention. And of course, the more attention that you give to the position group is a chance that you're going to take it away from some others. We're very fortunate because of the coaching staff we have. There's a lot of trust, right? We've been together for a while. So, there's a lot of trust that's happened in our positions, but we also have a lot of really intelligent and experienced tight ends. So you don't need to spend a ton of time worrying about them. There's not a lot of high maintenance, if you will. So you're just worried about getting them better, and allows you to continue to keep the holistic view of the offense, and so that you don't let it negatively impact other positions, right? But it's a unique dynamic. And I think that's why if you look at the professional football level, most coordinators are just a coordinator, and then there's position coaches for everyone else still, so you can continue to do that.
Is there something that makes like Trevor unique, Jared unique, Jason unique, or do you feel like they're all pretty similar?
From each other? Yeah. Well, I mean, as individuals, they all have different personalities, and I don't know how much time you've spent with all of them, but the whole room really. And so you brought up, Mason, Jared, and Trevor, but Tavita, Will, right? Okay, Conley's with us, right? Jaden Ham is with us, and Dylan Mong, and so every one of those guys is an individual, right? And so you have to coach them and teach them to their needs that way. And like I was saying before, they're all pretty intelligent, and they're all really driven to improve internally. And so they're easy to coach. They're fun. They're challenging to coach in the sense that, like, for example, I think I said this in the spring, the Mason Fairchilds of the world, and I'll use Mike Nowitzki as another example. Guys who have played a lot of snaps in college football, their target to improve gets smaller and smaller and smaller every year and every rep. And so as a coach, you got to really pay attention and make sure that you're getting your best players better and the information that they need to improve. When you coach a new guy, when I've talked to the offensive staff before, I often call that's like low-hanging fruit, because it's really easy to coach the things that they need to get better at because their target's quite a bit bigger. So luckily, every one of those guys is very accepting of coaching, and they want to get better. But it's a good room. It really is.
As players, is there something that
they all have caught the ball really, really well, right? So they all got really good hands. Okay. You look at Mason, who, from a size and strength standpoint, is really, really good in the box. And you look at the length of a Cardell and his ability to open up and run, you know what I mean, on the perimeter, right, are things that maybe differentiate those two kind of guys. Not that Mason can't, not that Trevor can't be in the box either. And then you have Jared, who is this athlete that needs to be used a lot of different ways, right? And so you kind of take those puzzle pieces and move them around to put guys in position to be successful.
How's Jaden done?
Ham? Good. Jaden's done good. He's had a really good spring, coming in, and as most people, like I think I said this in the spring, and I was going to prom, when he was here playing Division I football. And that's a total paradigm shift, right? And for him to grow up really fast, and he has a good summer. He's still growing. He's learning it. It's good to see him amongst his peers, and so some of the other kids in his class that showed up in the summer, right, in June, for him to kind of help, hey, here's what it's like when we start practicing. So between him, Calvin, and who's the other freshman that came in the spring? I can't remember. Saraz, right? So those three guys were all there to be able to kind of help. Hey, here's what's going to happen. Here's what the install looks like. They've been down the road a little bit.
Curious with the transition for Quentin Conley. If I remember right, you offer him as a tight end at the start. He comes as a walk-on wide receiver. What did that conversation look like for him to switch positions?
Well, it's about the long-term plan for him. And so depending on where a person is individually, where they come from, they're going to typically, especially the tight end position, they're going to spend a lot of time being good at one or the other. Rarely do you get the guys who are really great and developed as a receiver and as a in-the-box blocker. And so we wanted to make sure that he was really versed and prepared and developed to do things on the perimeter. So you start, just learn to do the receiving things, getting out of breaks, right? Okay, the route terminology, all that vertical stems, everything like that. And then progress to, okay, now let's get into the box and start to do both of them. So it's just part of his natural progression. And of course, there's the weight factor in there, right, too, is he's been able to gain weight in a healthy progression through his career here. I think he's in the, he's in the 230 something now, right, which is good. I think he was just over 200 when he got here, right? So to not just take a 200-pound kid, throw him in at the tight end, and expect him to go do the things that Mason Fairchild's doing, and to let him naturally progress into the spot.
Hey, Andy, with so many guys back on offense from last year and so many snaps, does that give you the ability to add more or maybe fine-tune more what you're doing because you're not having to go back and maybe teach that stuff?
The answer is yes to both of those. So in theory, the more experience you have to come back, your offensive volume can increase. So when we define offensive volume as the plays, concepts, the things that you do, okay? In theory, that's what should happen, but you still have to be careful because it has to be sustainable. You may say all these guys are coming back as starters, but if there's a big gap between them and the next person, then that's not as sustainable in case there's an injury or somebody's unavailable. So we do grow. We do need to get our best players better. We do need to not continue to do the same things, right? But it does allow us to add more, tweak, and evolve to what we feel like we need to do with our current personnel versus upcoming opponents.
And on the offensive line, I know there's so many guys that can switch and change positions. At some point, do you say, all right, we're going to kind of settle in and this is what you're going to be? Or
Yes, as fall camp would continue to evolve, you'll say, okay, here's the 5 that we want to go, and here are the 3 or 4 pieces that would go in next, right? And so through reps and experience, that picture gets a lot clearer basically every week of fall camp.
And then with Highshaw, how's he looking coming back?
Been really good. Running around today, it was good. I'm happy with how that running back room is looking between Daniel, Devin, of course. Sevi has done a great job. McDuffie was here obviously in the spring, and then Johnny in the room today. So all 5 of those guys I'm pleased. They're all getting a lot of reps. Coach Wallace doing a good job of rotating them and kind of really training them specifically a lot of different ways to diversify themselves. Them, much like the tight ends, there's some positional and some skill set diversity that you could use and move some pieces around quite a bit, which is fun.
Because you have that skill set diversity, how do you balance giving Devin as many touches as he deserves with his talent versus incorporating those other guys in?
That's a good question, right? So when we talked, and you bring it up, so when you look at football and you look at the number of average snaps, let's say in a Big 12 game, okay, and there's 73 is the number, okay, and there's 11 offensive players, okay. Well, you know that those 73 snaps, right, times 11, which is 103, so 803, I think, whatever it is, okay? So so there's 5 offensive linemen, they're going to take, right, 5 of those snaps, 5 of the reps every snap, okay? You with me? So we talk about there's a piece of a pie, and every rep that you get is a piece of that pie. That's one of the fun things that we have on offense because we have running backs, we have receivers, we have tight ends, we have quarterbacks. We have linemen that allow you to be really diverse. And you could be out there with 5 receivers on the field and line up in a bunch of different formations, do a lot of things, and the next snap you can go out there with 4 running backs and do some of those things. And so our players have really embraced that multiplicity piece. And for them, they want to play at the next level, they want to help that, want to promote that. That's what they do at the next level. They say, here are the 5 guys that we have that are available this week to play, and we got to move around and make them work. And so it's been good. They've all really embraced the opportunity to help their team in any capacity, all those positions.
Jalen said the other day that he's, I think, up about 10 pounds, but also faster. And I think that's probably pretty consistent across your team. There's a lot of guys that are sounding like that. What does that mean and look like for him specifically and how he can play this year?
I don't know that, it would change a ton of things other than just his performance, right? If you're faster, you're faster. And if you're heavier, in theory, you have to maybe take more of a pounding or generate more power. And so that's the maturation for all those guys that you see. And so if you were to, it's going to be kind of funny to do, hopefully maybe at the end of the year, if you were to look at, let's take a Jalen and maybe a Quentin Skinner and look at their very first game they played here and what they looked like in their uniform to what they would look like this year, it's going to look a lot different, right? And so the off-season goal of any football team is to get the kids bigger, faster, stronger, and we're definitely doing that. Now, how much faster, stronger, bigger does a person need to get for you to utilize them differently? I don't know. You know what I mean? That's a weird question,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In the sense of, when they're pretty fast to start with. You know what I mean? So, but I think it's just going to help him with his health. It's going to help him physically. It's going to help him. I think his arm strength is improved a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't have any kind of metrics or radar to really prove that, but you can just kind of see it. Really making a lot of athletic throws.
Yeah.
He's good.
So you're not taking that into account much for calls or?
No, I don't go, now we can use him like a running back, you know what I mean? And just
Sure.
give him 30 carries a game, and not quite like that, or say, okay, he's super fast all of a sudden,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
right.
But he has enhanced and even been optimized more in his level of athleticism, I would say.
Curious with Armage, he was obviously here when you guys got here. Can you talk about his progression over the last few years and what you're seeing from him now?
Well, just physically, the way he looks differently. And this is a credit to him. For him to recognize what he needs to do to be able to play consistently and move consistently in terms of, how strong he is, his weight, right, all that kind of stuff. He's changed immensely. And he is really fast for a big guy. And as you guys know, I've talked about that before in this room, we love offensive linemen who are athletic and can run, and he can do that at a high level. So again, much like I talked about with Jalen and Quentin, you could go back and look at Amarje in his uniform, the first games he played, to what he looks like now, and it's impressive, right? And how he's transformed his body. It's credit to him to want to do it, and the staff our strength staff in the offseason, nutrition staff, and he's bought into being able to grow in that area because he recognizes that to get to where he wants to go, that's what he needs to do.
Hey, Andy, at that guard spot, there's some pretty good competition
Yeah.
going on there.
Yeah. So we love. And I said this in the spring, I'm really pleased and excited about the depth that we have in the O-line room right now. Now, it still needs to continue to develop, and that you were pointing out before, John, we need to make sure that we can't have musical chairs every snap and every week. It'll start to hone in on what we need to do. But I've said before, you're always trying to play your best players. So just because a guy's a left tackle, if he's not our sixth best lineman and we need to put our guy in, we're going to move guys around to make sure we always have our five best offensive linemen in the field, just like we would any other position.
And then as a coordinator, how comforting is it to know you've got Jason Bean sitting there who's shown he can win Power 5 football games?
Well, it's super comfortable. And this would be curious to know, and maybe someone could find this out. How many teams at the Power 5 level have two quarterbacks coming back that have started and won Power 5 games? I bet it's a pretty small number, right? So the fact that we have that, and I love that room, and there's that competition in there as well, right? And those pieces that we talk about, the multiplicity, the things that we could do with all those skill players and that back, it's super comforting, right? It's good. I mean, it's fun to go out there and watch those guys play and compete and not skip a beat when you go from one huddle to the second huddle to the next huddle.
Just looking at Jalen's progression from the first time you ever saw him to now, what's been the biggest difference you've seen in his game?
From the first time I saw him,
Yeah.
well, keep in mind the first time I saw him, I was on film against Oklahoma, I believe.
Oh boy.
Okay? Right? You're chuckling because, we might have set a record on how many times a kid got hit at the quarterback position. I would tell you his understanding of what's happening conceptually, why the play is organized and set up the way it is really getting to an elite level. Okay? He's always been charismatic. You guys know that. He's always been fun to be around. I think, he's got the respect of his teammates. But he's really growing into okay, this is why it's set up this way. And if there's ever a tweak or a small little coaching point that just happened today, say, hey, listen, if this is the picture it looks like in the box, don't throw that, do this. Man, the next snap we went out there, he saw it, did exactly what I told him to do. Right? And so it's grown, which you would expect from anybody. The more they play, the more they start. So I would go to his understanding and knowledge, in addition to how he's changed his body, right? Like we pointed out before, how he's honed and optimized his athleticism, right? So mentally, it's kind of grown together that way.
Hey, Andy, you recruited Mikey Pauley out of high school. You offered him.
Okay.
And now he's here. What I know it's early. What have you seen from him?
Very similar to what I say about the other quarterbacks. Athletic individual, throws the ball well, good on him. Right? Still needs to continue to develop and grow, but excited about him, for sure. Him and Cole. Both those guys come in the program and really, really good. Been pumped up about them. Athletic guys, for sure. Big dudes. And you remember from high school, you know what I mean? He's a real deal, right? Running around, doing things. He's able to do that, so it's been awesome.
With so much pre-snap motion, distortion, and other unique things that you have in your offensive scheme, do you take inspiration or ideas from other coaches, either in college or the NFL level?
Oh yeah, we are the greatest thieves in the country. Seriously, we have people scouring film in all departments, looking, spend time. I think that's healthy. You know, you see something, spend time talking to a guy. That's a good play that fits. Let's steal it or tweak it to something that we need to do. Right? Complimentary. A lot of it would be just how do you dress up and present something that we already do that's similar. Makes you, get creative in your mind. So we do. We steal everything, all kinds of stuff. And people steal from us. That's the way it is, right? So it's been good. Yeah, pro football for sure. College, and a lot of times people will look at things situated. Who's the best team in the country in third down? And you just look at what they do, right? And go, okay, that's cool. That's good. That's a good man beater or whatever it might be. Who's great at running the quarterback. Okay, or who was great at short yardage situations. And so you look at those situations and you look to add and grow your package.
Are there any specific coaches you like to watch more than others?
I enjoy watching our Kansas City Chiefs. They're fun to watch, for sure. Yep, they're creative. They're similar mindsets, I think. Shout out to those guys, right?
Anything you see, we've seen what they do. Anything you see that makes you go, wow.
Wow,
Like, not from
that's a good thing, or
not more of a I can't believe they're doing that. That I'm thinking of that one snow globe or whatever.
Yeah, well, what that is, when I saw that was, and it's funny because when that came up, I was like, I know exactly the scenario that would come up for a team, a group of individuals that are growing together as an offense, very comfortable with everything they're doing, and that kind of to the question we had earlier, with all these people coming back, can you tweak things? Can you grow? You can 100% grow and do stuff like that requires rehearsal and a little time to invest because we already have so much of the other stuff taken care of and down, right? So when you have people returning and they've been doing what they do for a long time, but when they do stuff like that, just like when we do stuff like that, it's because you're afforded the time to install it because you are very comfortable with the other things that are already there. And of course, over a long season, and they play a longer season than we do, you'll get bored. Right, so people do stuff like that.
You gonna do one?
We'll have all kinds of stuff. I actually said this to some of our players. I got by position. They're coming up with plays, and they're presented by position. The tight ends went the other day.
Their own plays. They're pitching to you.
I said they pitched to me. Okay. Yep, exactly. And I said it's got to be good. You can't come up with some BS now and just and think it's going to happen. And to their credit, they critically would think about it. They put it in our terminology, right? If it doesn't have a word, they have a name. They say this is just like this, and they think about it just like a coach would, and they come up with good stuff. I said you could scour, you could use film, you could draw it, whatever you want. Come up with something. So we have every position going through, then doing that throughout fall camp. Yeah.
Grabbed anything yet?
We did. I took. We're not installed it yet. Yep. But the tight ends, there's 2 plays. I said that's a good idea. We can do that.
Cool.
Give them a little ownership in what we're doing too, right? Because that's what on offense. That's what we should be doing, right? Be creative and stressful and. Some 20-year-old guy thinking of something like that, pretty good idea. As long as you can put your guard down as an adult and be like, okay, young man, that is a good idea, right? Which is hard for a lot of us to do.
What does a healthy Mike Kotelnicki do?
What does a healthy Mike Kotelnicki do? Man, it gives us a lot. That guy, when we talk about football, we say it doesn't matter what we do, it matters that we're all on the same page, especially up front. When you have somebody in there who thinks like a coach, right, and been in the game. Again, I would like to find out he has got to, if he starts all this season, he's got to set a record for the number of consecutive starting games in college football. I mean, it's going to be a 5-year starter. Not supposed to be able to do that, but COVID allowed that to happen, right? So you have a guy up there who go up there and direct people and say, boom, boom, boom. He puts all of us on the same page up front. It's really impressive. That's what he does. So it gives us a lot less stress about learning to make sure that we're going the right direction and blocking the right people.
Anything else for Coach?
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Yep, have a great